I'd like to invite you to imagine that you're living in the city of Rome around the year AD 60, a city that is already home to maybe 1 million people. Now, you may have a vision in your mind of elegance and splendor and sophistication, but that is not your existence. You live in the noisy, smelly, squalid outlying districts where families share rooms in 6-story tenement blocks among the industry and activity, stonemasonry, metalwork, cloth dyeing, leather tanning. There, in the middle of all that filth and squalor, the seed of Christianity has been sown, and you're keeping it alive. You're part of a mature group of Christ followers, few in number, but passionate and committed. It takes real courage to live counterculturally at the heart of this brutally oppressive regime, to be ready to say not Caesar is Lord, but proudly and emphatically, Jesus Christ is Lord. And the other radical difference is that you're like a new family in which people care for each other, belong to a sharing community like this, and you will eat. But it's a complex and changing picture at this particular point, because previously Jews had been banned from the city by the Emperor Claudius, but now that he's died and Nero has succeeded, that edict has been lifted. So Jewish families are coming back, and they're starting to merge with these established Christian churches or house groups. So there is a sort of degree of tension and rivalry during that period of readjustment. But overall, the big picture is one of richness and diversity, of different nationalities and ethnicities, Jews and Gentiles, slaves and free, men and women. Some of you are well-to-do, but the majority are poor. Now imagine that you're a craft worker. As a group, you can't all meet together because there aren't spaces large enough to house you all. So at the end of the day, you clear away all your tools and you gather together in your workshop. There you pray, sing songs, you share bread and wine, and you hear stories of the life and teachings of Jesus. And it's into this small but vibrant community that Paul's letter arrives. I wonder what it looked like. Well, here is my suggestion, and I'd now like to ask my two visual aid assistants to come out and unfurl it for you so that you can get a sense of its scale. It is Paul's longest letter, and possibly his last, written from Corinth in the winter of 57 AD, before he made his final fateful journey to Jerusalem, where he was arrested and imprisoned. Imagine this precious roll of papyrus, product of much careful thought and reflection, winging its way halfway across the Mediterranean world, over land and sea, and finally being brought through the labyrinth of back streets of Rome to your workshop and put into your hands, all the time carried with care and diligence by a lady called Phoebe, a deacon in the church near Corinth. I wonder what the reaction in your group was when you saw this letter, because not many of you could read, and Phoebe would have had to have read it out to you. What did you say? I think we better sit down for this one. Thank you. What a document. 16 chapters, 7,000 words of closely written, carefully crafted theological reflection on the new life in Christ, written specially for you. Now, some of you know Paul. In fact, he sends special greetings to a bunch of you. including 7 or 8 women who hold significant positions within your house group. He's never visited Rome before, but he deeply desires to do so, to harvest among you. This is his opening greeting to all in Rome who are loved by God and called to be his holy people. Grace and peace to you from God our Father and from the Lord Jesus Christ. Constantly I remember you in my prayers at all times, and I pray that now at last, by God's will, I may be able to come to you. So this is a long and elaborate calling card and a big ask, a request that you, the Christ community in Rome, will fund Paul's planned next missionary trip to the Roman province of Spain. At first, since he's never been to Rome, he feels he must introduce himself and lay out for you a detailed account of his beliefs. That letter is the end product, the longest of his letters, and the most important in the history of Christian theology. In the 16th century, it was the theological centerpiece of the Protestant Reformation. Its language of justification, grace, and faith, usually shortened to justification by faith, has been central to Protestant theology ever since. Tom Wright, in his biography of Paul, describes it as one of the most ecstatic and exhilarating, dense and difficult, intellectually and spiritually challenging and rewarding writings from any period of church history, and some might argue from anybody else's history as well. So, hold on to your hats. Let's take a quick, deep dive. At its heart, Romans offers a masterful argument on the way God brings all humans into a right relationship with him through Christ. He does this not through narrative, but through persuasive argument, as if he's taking part in a debate, and always with a sense of passion and vigour. And remember what I said about those tensions between Jewish and Gentile Christians. This is Paul's bold attempt to bring about unity and friendship. Plus, of course, a passionate call to his fellow Jews that God has been loyal to them and true. The opening premise is that through the good news that Paul preaches, God's power is at work for the salvation of all people of faith, Jews first and then Gentiles. But first he spends some time lambasting everyone for the mess the world is in. This, he says, is not so much because of vice or of breaking rules, but because of a distorted use of human freedom that rejects God's order and therefore distorts all human relationships. To solve this situation, humans don't need more rules. They need a power that will heal their hearts and enable them to use their freedom appropriately. For Paul, the good news is that God has accomplished just such a transformation, not through law and prophets, but through the life and death of a human being, Jesus Christ. This is a gift or grace from God, which in the language of Torah affects atonement and reconciliation between God and his people. Key to all this is the fact that the death of Jesus is the free and faithful act of a human being. The faith of Jesus is an essential element of his death, and therefore of the act through which God puts humans in right relationship with himself. Because of this, God shows himself to be righteous and to make righteous those who share the faith of Jesus. The pattern of Jesus' response to God is for Paul the pattern for those who put their faith in the gift that God gave in Jesus. But how does this intervention by God reach other humans? Paul asserts emphatically in the passage that Sasha read for us today that the gift of God in Christ has in fact reached others through the empowerment that comes from the Holy Spirit. Jesus' death was an act of love that proved God's love for humans and has entered that place of human freedom, the heart. So here again is that magnificent passage from chapter 5 that connects faith, peace, grace, and hope in a wonderfully vibrant, typically Pauline cascade of divine blessings. Paul certainly knew more than his fair share of suffering, and you, as beleaguered and oppressed citizens of Rome, have had many afflictions. But they enhance rather than diminish the fire of heavenly hope that burns brightly in your breast. Therefore, key word from Paul, therefore, since we are justified by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ, through whom we have obtained access to this grace in which we stand. And we boast in our hope of sharing the glory of God. And not only that, but we also boast in our afflictions, knowing that affliction produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit that has been given to us. Maybe you can start to get a sense of the effect that Paul's letter must have had on your community. Like a large stone dropped into a pond and the ripples spreading out in all directions. And that's why this document must have been especially precious, kept under lock and key and passed on from generation to generation, despite all manner of purges and persecutions. And as your Christ-following community meet to read and reread and reflect on its contents, I wonder what other stories and teachings of Jesus you would have shared as part of your oral tradition. Fascinating, isn't it, to speculate on what shape those stories might have had at this point, some 10 years before Mark, or maybe 20 years before Matthew's Gospel was written down. I'd like to imagine that you might have heard a version of the words that now come to us through the pages of Matthew's Gospel, that telling of the compelling story of Jesus recruiting the 12 apostles and sending them out on a dangerous mission. Humble, everyday folk, just like you and me, responding with care and compassion to the needs of their fellow citizens, resourced and provided for by God, and carrying forth against all the odds the much needed work of healing and restoration. The harvest is plentiful, but the labourers are few. Therefore pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest to send out labourers into the harvest. Just imagine the impact that those words would have had on you, the poor, the oppressed, the exploited and persecuted citizens of Rome, living under the yoke of empire, but nonetheless steadfast and defiant and determined to share the blessings that you have received. Through faith in the risen Christ and through the power of the Holy Spirit that has been poured into your hearts, you are willing to head out into the harvest and proclaim the good news. The kingdom of heaven has come near. Amen.
So, it's a busy day. It's afternoon teas are starting today at 2:30. So if anybody is able to help with that, Natalie and Johanna will be around. And then at 5 o'clock, we've got the confirmation. So it's a deanery confirmation. So we've got 17 candidates altogether, from Great Missenden, from the Lee, from Cholsbury, from Aston Clinton, and 2 from here. And one of those is Zerka, who's here. You all know Zerka. And Zerka's just been to Ukraine again. And Zerka's come back as Dr. Zerka. Zerka, when did you start your PhD?
Yeah, it's like 5 years ago.
5 years ago. Wow. So you've been working and working. And every time Zerka's disappeared off to Ukraine, it's to do more of that. You've been away for 2 weeks and graduated while you've been there. So amazing. And it's sort of to do with print?
Printing technology.
Printing technology. Amazing. Do you know, I totally admire people who do PhDs. There were 2 brothers that I was at school with, and one did them in potatoes, and one did them in irises. So it's so well done, and I know that you're mightily relieved that it's done. Please do come at 5 o'clock. The other person from here is Christina. Christina was baptised last June at a 10:45 service. So please do come along. And so there's 17 confirmands. I think it's the word. But yeah, please be praying for them and support them. What's happening during the week is Sparkers, as always. We've got to over 30 children coming week by week, which is just amazing. And then on Wednesday, John Hampden, reception from John Hampden, are coming for their yearly mock wedding. So yes, I have to remember to buy the Haribo rings that I use for that. So they will be around on Wednesday. It's Sages on Friday. I know some of you are, perhaps anybody here, going off on a U3A holiday as well. So lots going on. Right. We're going to do this bit next. So, some of you will know that yesterday Jennifer was 90. So, let's sing, and then you can blow all of these candles out. So let's sing to you first. So come and just stand here. You can turn it so everybody can see you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jennifer. Happy birthday to you. Lots of blowing. With coffee. Thank you. David, do you want to come and talk about the brief?
Yes, on Wednesday evening we've got a special screening of a film called the People's Emergency Briefing. Back in November of last year, a group of experts came together at Westminster Central Hall to warn about the impacts of the climate crisis on all aspects of life in this country, our food, our wildlife, our economy, everything. And that event was filmed, and it's now been edited down into a film that lasts 50 minutes, and it's going all around the country having screenings, and we're showing it here on Wednesday evening at 7:30. It's free, so do come along, watch the film, and engage in the debate afterwards. We need to respond urgently to the evidence that is presented in the film and decide together what we're going to do. So if you're interested in coming along, please sign up via the Eventbrite link, which is in the Friday update.
Would you like to, Jack, are you wanting to...
Just a quick notice ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Hi, so our Shine Summer Camp is about 2 months away now, between August the 18th and August the 20th. Tuesday to Thursday, it will be 10 till 2. Sign-ups with kids have gone really well, but what we really need is a couple more adults just so we have a good child to adult ratio. If that's something you'd like to do, please do sign up for form so we can get DBSs sorted. That would be wonderful. A second thing, we're having a young adults walk next Saturday morning. So there's no, if you consider yourself a young adult or you know someone who is a young adult, please do, if they would like to come on that walk, please do let them know about that. It would be great, and give them my contact details. Thank you.
Grace in which we stand, peace within our hearts, hope that does not shame us, hope that lights the dark, send us to the harvest, where your kingdom starts, where your kingdom starts, where your kingdom starts.